Morning, everybody. Justin Trudeau has made a grave error in putting his 2019 election eggs in the Townhall basket. And we're going to look at Rahaf. I'm sorry, I mispronounced her name, but I mispronounce a lot of names, so sorry about that. We're going to look at the complicated arrival of Rahaf and the pointed ignoring of other people, despite the rhetoric that Miss Freeland puts out about this case and other cases. It feels more and more like the politicization of helping people around the world is what Justin Trudeau's hallmark is. But first, let's watch him completely ignore this woman's question and go off on a little tirade about construction workers, but not touch on anything at all that she asked about. Nothing. She asks a very, very well thought out question. And I think that it is a question that deserves an answer because Mr. Trudeau has maligned men at every opportunity. And so this woman, well, she does an excellent job at explaining her question. And the Prime Minister does a usual job of not answering it. So here we go.
Welcome to Regina, Mr. Prime Minister. I would like to bring attention to comments you had made back in November when you had spoke about the gender and social impacts construction workers create in rural areas. Although not a construction worker, I myself am an oil field worker in addition to being a full-time university student and have spent my summers temporarily relocating to various rural areas in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba to work on oil field related projects. During my time working in the oil field as a young female, I have come across some of the kindest and most respectful male co-workers and have created lasting friendships in the rural towns I had temporarily relocated to. I work very hard and have dedicated a lot of time in the oil field industry during my summer in order to keep up with increasing tuition costs. And I feel that you have painted myself, my co-workers, and friends in a negative light with your comment. My question for you, Mr. Prime Minister, is what exactly did you mean by gender impacts when you bring construction workers into a rural area? If you could, please provide a thorough explanation on your comment in addition to clarifying what exactly those social and gender impacts are. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your question, and thank you for your hard work. Construction workers build this country every single day. The work you do and the work your colleagues do around this country, building our roads, building our bridges, building our homes, building our factories, building our country every day is an essential building block of the country and the future we're building. That's why we're investing historic amounts in infrastructure. That is why we know that investments in the work the construction workers do right across the country is essential for building the better future that we need. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for your question. And I'm not going to answer it, but, you know, it gave me an opportunity to talk about construction workers. He didn't answer any of that. What exactly did you mean by gender impacts when you bring construction workers into a rural area? Could you please provide a thorough explanation of your comments in addition to clarifying what exactly the social and gender impacts are? You didn't have one social or gender impact. You didn't say anything about it, Mr. Trudeau. A complete and total dodge. And people are upset. People are rightly tired of this tap dance. It's annoying. You know, when asked a question, we want an answer. And again, here's another one where people talk about, the question is asked, and I won't subject you to it, but go ahead and look at Trudeau's answer. It's the same old tap dance. It's garbage. So the other story I wanted to look at this morning is Rahaf. And again, sorry if I get her name wrong. I apologize. CBC is reporting there's a lot of social media stuff about this girl. There's a lot of conflicting reports. There's a lot of politicking with this girl. And in light of our current situation with Saudi Arabia, one, we buy a lot of oil, 12% of Canada's oil, or that's the figure I read this morning. It could be wrong. It could be like 12% of Eastern oil or something like that. But I read 12%. So that's not a small number, right? $300 million a month is our monthly bill for Saudi Arabia in oil, right? So in light of that, in light of the diplomatic quagmire we've gotten ourselves into, running in to save this person seemed like a bad idea. That she was safe in a Thai hotel. She had been taken custody of by the United Nations, and she had Australia as a place to go to. She would be going there as a refugee claimant, so she would be processed. And instead of going to as a refugee claimant, Canada said, no, we'll just take her right now as a refugee, boom. And as soon as you're a refugee, you get a permanent residency card when you land on Canadian soil. That's the law, that's the rules. So it seems crazy to do that in light of all of those facts with Saudi Arabia and our history and all of that stuff. And then it seems doubly a bad idea, I don't know about crazy, just a terrible idea, to parade her out in front of the media and say, oh, here she is, look, we saved her. Yay, everybody, we saved her from Saudi Arabia. Oh, here's your $300 million for the oil. Thanks. Right? It just seems like bad relationship, bad politics, bad, like, what is the plan for this? It seems like we should probably vet her. Okay, so to the CBC article, it says, who benefits from rescuing Rahaf? Rahaf, yeah, sure. Questions linger after whirlwind story of Saudi teen's asylum. Asked why Al-Kun's claim was processed so quickly, Global Affairs Canada was tight-lipped. It was a whirlwind affair that began with a Saudi teen barricading in a Thai hotel room, refusing to return to her allegedly abusive family. Just days later, Rahaf Mohammed Al-Kun was on Canadian soil, flanked by smiling officials and local service providers amid the flash of cameras. Quote, I believe in lighting a single candle, and where we can save a single person, where we can save a single woman, that is a good thing to do. Canada's Foreign Minister, Chrystia Freeland, told reporters at Toronto's Pearson Airport the memory of recent mudslinging with Saudi Arabia over detained women's rights advocate Samar Badawi hanging in the air. Now, as Al-Kun begins a new life in a new country, questions are being raised about the reasons for Canada's speedy decision to grant her asylum, the message it sends, and its implications for the future of the country's already frosty relationship with Saudi Arabia, where an estimated 17,000 Canadians currently live. An impossible situation. Quote, Canada and Saudi Arabia are in a political battle currently, so because this woman is Saudi, my sense is that there was some political motive in promoting the, quote, rescuing of a Saudi girl, says Ryerson University professor Ali. I'm not going to try and pronounce the first name. I'm going to fail. Quote, of course, the rescuing of oppressed people is a Western narrative in many different ways, but the securing of a Saudi woman being oppressed by her family and her country sharpens this narrative in ways that may not have been possible otherwise. Sorry about that. The exact details of the 18-year-old plight aren't known. After her arrival in Canada, Al-Kun was whisked to an undisclosed location out of concerns about where her descent or what her descent from the kingdom might mean for her safety. I scroll down. International rights monitors consistently rank Saudi Arabia among the world's worst nations for women's rights and gender equality. In its annual report on gender rights in 2018, the World Economic Forum ranked it 141 out of 149 countries. You know what's weird about that? The Washington Post reports, believe it or not, Saudi Arabia was elected to the UN Women's Rights Commission. Yep, Saudi Arabia is on the UN Women's Rights Commission. So, there's that. Seems strange, right? Like all of this conflicting, all of these reports that are trying to drum up and cherry pick, like 141 out of 149 for the World Economic Forum, but don't mention that uncomfortable fact that Saudi Arabia is on the Women's Rights Council for the United Nations. Weird, right? An exceptional case, back to the article. So why was it that Al-Kun's case was processed so speedily? Lauren LaRose, a spokesperson for the UN Refugee Agency, told the CBC News Al-Kun's case was, quote, an exceptional situation, a designation determined by the UN on a case-by-case basis. Examples of high-priority cases include those where someone is very ill or violence against women and girls. Okay? Quote, while it may be new information for the public, it is something that the UNHCR does in terms of facilitating fast-track resettlements in situations when individuals may be facing immediate life-threatening situations or at risk of being threatened in their home country, according to an international principle known as non-refoulement. Out of an estimated 25.4 million refugees worldwide, less than 1% are resettled because the needs simply outweighed the numbers of spaces available globally, said UNHCR Senior Resettlement Officer Michael Casola. But at least one former diplomat says Canada's privileging of Alkan's case could set a, quote, dangerous precedent. The Australians were prepared, as I see it, to accept her as a refugee claimant. What we did is go one step further and accept her not as a claimant, but as a refugee. And that's a process that in Canada typically requires an assessment of the claim, a vetting of the individual, and a decision that typically can take as much as 2 years, said David Chatterson, Canada's ambassador to Saudi Arabia from 2009 to 2011. Quote, what happens the next time a teenage girl or an adult woman from Saudi Arabia flees her family and declares herself no longer to be a Muslim? Does that mean automatic sanctuary? In Saudi Arabia, leaving Islam is treated as a crime punishable by death. I scroll down. Quote, when the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, the UNHCR, made a request of us that we grant Ms. Rahaf al-Kun asylum, we accepted out of concern for her safety. We asked that her privacy be respected, said spokesperson Maron. So that was the response when asked why her claim was processed so quickly. So it seems pretty wild. Hold on, I've got one more thing. Dennis Horak, who served Canada's ambassador to Saudi Arabia until he was expelled from the country last year, said the next few days could make a big impact on diplomatic relations between Canada and the kingdom. Quote, I would hate to see us use this to keep trotting her out and have meetings with the Prime Minister, various photo ops, things like that, become the mallet with which to bash Saudi Arabia, he said. Does she become a prop for our disputes and our concerns with Saudi Arabia? I don't think that's fair to her, and I don't think that's valuable in trying to rebuild our relationship. Right. And that's kind of where my thinking was going, but probably because I read this as well. It doesn't seem like a great idea to trot this person out as somebody who is saved when we have very concerning situations here. Also, the vetting of this person is problematic. This is her Twitter account, and this is a tweet from January 2018. She said, I'm sitting thinking about how to be famous and have advertisements and get money for immigration without seeing my face so that the tribe and cut my neck. So like there's a lot of really conflicting reports. There's people who are trying to say that, you know, she's one thing and then she's another. So it's interesting to watch this, but the politicization of this case is, I think, a massive misstep in a long string of missteps for the Trudeau government. And Justin Trudeau is getting his feet to the fire and pointedly not answering questions. So if you expect this course to change, don't. They think they're doing a good job, and they think they've saved this person, but all they've done is set a dangerous precedent and given people a path to claim some kind of track to getting to Canada. And it's dangerous. It's a dangerous precedent to set. I don't think it's going to go well. Not for Justin Trudeau. Not for Canada either. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca.